Hey everyone, welcome to the second part of this tutorial. I'll be using watercolors to color this sketch, and these are the four colors that I will be using today. We have Monte Amiata Natural Sienna, Organic Vermilion, Indentron Blue, and Phthalo Green. So let me show you the color swatches that these four colors can create. So this is the color wheel that I have created from these three primary colors. This is the sienna, this is organic vermilion, and this is indentron blue. Now if you want to follow along by using the same colors, then you have to get the exact same colors, but it is actually not necessary to get exactly the same colors. As long as you have a warm yellow that is somewhat like orange or a sienna, if you have a warm red, if you have a warm blue, or maybe if you have French ultramarine, you can still follow along. As for the green, well, how do you choose a green? Now, for example, here I have sienna mixed with indentron blue. The greens that I get, they are really dull, very dead. That's why I included a phthalo green, which is very bright. So if you have a color, if you have a secondary color that is very dead, then you might want to add a tube of color that is very vibrant. So let's say if your purple is really very dull, very dead, you can add a tube of purple. So these are the four colors swatched out. You can see phthalo green, this is really bright. And when I mix phthalo green with organic vermilion, I get this green, which is pretty nice, and I'm going to use that green to color the trees later on. The brush that I'm using is the Novskaya Paletra Sable brush. You can use any sable brush, the brand doesn't matter. Sable, it's pretty much the quality brush regardless of the brand you get. And now I'm going to mix this color. I'm going to be using this color for the sky. It's very nice. I just have to mix the three primary colors together. Just add them bit by bit to one another. Oops, I think it's a bit too much. This is definitely too much. So usually blue is a very strong color, and if you want to add blue, just add it very lightly. So I just want to get this this color going. All right, I think this is the color that I have, and I'm going to put my palette to the side first, and I'm going to switch to using this squirrel brush. Since I'm at home, I have access to all my brushes. If I'm outdoors, I would just use the sable brush to create this wash. So this is a wash. I want to use some wet on wet techniques today, so I'm going to create this wash over the sky first. Let me just add a bit more water. This technique works best on cotton watercolor paper, because the cotton will absorb the water and hold it for a while you lay in the wash. So now that I have the paper wet, I can just very lightly dab in some of the colors. You can see that this is almost purple, so I'm going to dab in some magenta, some indentron blue, create the blue skies. This looks like it's almost going to rain, sort of a rainy sky. If you do not pick up the water, some of the paint may actually flow down later on and affect the painting. So I want to do that right now. With the wash earlier, I can wash these areas here as well. These areas are supposed to be gray tones. So let me just create a very quick wash. I'm not sure if you can hear the thunder that's going on while I'm recording. It's going to rain. I'm actually painting at home. If I'm actually painting outdoors, I will work even quicker because there's no way for me to predict when it's exactly going to rain, so I try to paint a bit faster when I'm outdoors. Now the good thing about painting outdoors is the paint, they will dry very quickly since it's under the sun, and because the paint can dry very quickly, you can paint a bit faster. Okay, I'm back. For the plants here, I'll be using phthalo green mixed with a little bit of vermilion. If you use phthalo green like this onto the page, you can see that this is really unnatural, but I'm going to add a bit of organic vermilion to basically just dull it down. I think it's best to mix it on the palette instead of doing what I'm doing right now, which is to have it mixed on the paper. It's a bit difficult to control. I need more green, so if I add a bit too much red like what I have done here, it's not going to look like what I want it to look like. Okay, so I think I'm done with the green, and now I want to use sienna, a very light wash of sienna for the roof. So let me just, sienna is a color that you can actually just use straight from the tube. So I'm just going to create a very light wash of sienna like this. Perhaps I want a little bit of red to give it some variation. So once I add the red, you can see that the red is overpowering. So let me just add more sienna. So I'm just going to color all the areas that are supposed to be yellow. So here I'm painting the rest of the roof with this sienna. And you can see here some of the areas, they have a bit of red because I wanted some variety in that yellow. So when you have some variety in the yellow, it makes it it makes the wash look a bit more interesting. So this is a darker wash of sienna. I'm going to use a lot of water now to paint basically the walls of this temple. And that's what I'm doing right now. You can see I'm moving my brush just to cover the wall. It's a very light wash compared to the sienna of the roof. There are some, I'm not sure what these are called, barricades or something. These are white in colors, so I'm not going to leave them. I'm going to leave them as white. Okay, I'm quite happy with this yellow wash on the wall. I'm going to continue the yellow wash for this building right in the background. Okay, I think there is this yellow rubbish bin here. It's actually bright yellow, but since I do not have a bright yellow, I will have to use sienna for that. So I think some parts of the roof, it's almost dry, and now I can mix a bright orange. I'm going to be using this sienna with vermilion just to mix a bright orange. Can you hear the rain hitting my window? This is actually more red than orange, so I need more sienna. I think this is a nice color. Let me try and cover all the areas that are supposed to be orange. The barricade here is supposed to be red, so I'm going to use vermilion and use the tip of my brush to create the barricade. I think that's all the red there is in this scene. Now since I'm using red, I'm going to add a bit of indentrum blue to create the color of this vehicle here, which is supposed to be some purple-like color. So I'm just going to create this whole wash as purple. And later on when it's dry, I'm going to add a shadow layer to make the darker areas darker. There's a person here and here. Alright, for the background here, I'm going to just dab all this. For all these people here, I'm just going to dab all these people with this color. Alright, for the darker areas here, which is this part, I'm using a very concentrated wash of indentation blue. So this is indentation blue in a concentrated form. The bottom of the vehicle is supposed to be close to black. This part here is supposed to be green. Some parts of the art here, it has some yellow in it. The bottom of this is not as dark. I need to make the shadows, or make the shadow of this this structure here much darker. So right now I'm going to wait for this to dry before I apply another layer of color. For the shadow area here, I'm going to mix the three primary colors together. So I have something like this. I think this looks about right. And I can use this wash to wash the bottom side of the bottom side of this roof here to create that shadow. Now some of these structures, they are darker, so I want to use sienna to make them darker. This roof here is also in sienna color in the background, but the part that is beneath it is actually in shadow, so let me make it a bit darker. Alright, for the shadows of the steps, I'm just going to paint over like this very quickly. The lines are actually supposed to be thinner. The shadow lines are actually supposed to be thinner. And for this car, the windows, I'm going to make it a bit darker. So I'm just basically touching up different parts of the painting that I have forgotten to color. I think this is it. Alright, I think this is it. Oh no, not yet. This part here, there is supposed to be some blue. Now in the photo, the blue is actually like sky blue, cyan blue, but since I only have indentation blue, this is the only blue that I can use. So I shall just use it like this. And I forgot to color this part. This should be darker shadow. Let me mix the three primary colors together again to get that darker shade here. Okay. I also want to paint the bottom of the roof to give it some extra shadow. I think this part here, and you just paint this in as a shape. And lastly, I'm going to take some vermilion to draw this circle. This is actually some signboard. Alright, so I think this is almost done. Let me just put some roots there. For the finishing touch, I'm going to use some white gouache to paint over some of the colors for the parts that are supposed to be white, but I accidentally painted them over with color. So this part here is supposed to be white here as well. So this is how the sketch looks like when colored. The steps here, they are drawn a bit weird. I think I probably should have paid more attention to getting the proportion right, to drawing them in more detail, but perhaps I can maybe salvage something here by adding some lines. Not sure if it works actually. Probably did not work. All right, let's take a closer look. So instead of cyan, which I do not have, I use indentrum blue for the blue color. And this is the shadow area, which I mixed with the 3 primary colors. So this is how the roof looks like. I really like this orange that is mixed with sienna and vermilion. This is really nice. You can see how opaque that wash is. It really contrasts very strongly against the orange roof. I should have left that part in white when I was painting, but I forgot about it, so I painted over. So now I have to paint over with a white gouache. I think it still works. Some of the details I forgot to draw in would be here, so I'm going to draw in some of the details now, just to give it some extra detail. Now the thing when drawing over watercolor is the line, the black against the color is going to be a bit stronger than color over the black. What I mean is when you're drawing and you apply watercolor over it, the watercolor sort of blends with the ink line that's below it, but when the watercolor is dry and you go and draw over it, the black is going to look a bit glaring by contrast because there's no watercolor applied over it. So which is the case here. Okay, so let's put some details here as well. I think here it's pretty alright. Let's move down to the car. So this is the car. It's a very wonky car. I drew it in a very wonky manner. So that's the trees. So remember earlier I used phthalo green and I mixed it with some organic vermilion. Even though there is no red in the actual reference photo, it doesn't really matter because you do need to add that red to make the green bit darker. And sometimes when you see variation like this, again, it's more interesting than a flat wash like this. For little details like this, you may require a smaller brush, but in this case, I basically just use this brush. I just need to be a bit more careful. Now the sable brush is capable of keeping a very sharp tip, so you can create all these details. You just have to be a bit more careful, not to press down too hard. So this is the shadow under this structure. I mixed this shadow with the 3 primary colors again. So this is how the Golden Buddha Temple in Bangkok, Thailand looks like. And I'm going to write down the name of this temple. So that's all for the second part of this tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Just contact me by email. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye!